Awesome. Welcome back, everybody, after our brief adjournment. Following on from the discussions that were had around the table prior to our break, I have a proposal to put to the committee hearings, but first I'd just like to clarify with our CE about receiving any advice.
Dr. Chair, during the break I spoke with Mike Reid, Governance Advisor from Local Government New Zealand, to get some advice on inclusion of Councillor Aileen back in the deliberations. He's advised that Councillor Aileen is able to rejoin the deliberations and participate on the LTP conversation. However, where she's made a submission that makes it quite difficult for her to participate in the deliberations, and it would be wise to exclude her from parts of the LTP deliberations where she has made a submission. I have recently just spoken with Councillor Aileen, who said she is available. She'll text me back in about 20 minutes once she's had some childcare sorted, and she may be available to come and rejoin the meeting in person after that.
Thank you. So I, as Chair of the Hearings Committee, I would like to propose to include Councillor Aileen for the remainder of these LTP deliberations, excluding discussions and decisions around specifically the Carterton District Trails project and the event centre. Do I have anyone to second my proposal? Thank you, Mayor Ron. All those in favour? Hands showing, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Steve? I'll abstain. Thanks.
I'll abstain.
Abstention from Councillor Cretney and Deputy Mayor. The motion is passed. What I propose that we now discuss until Councillor Aileen is able to join us is we discuss those items on the LTP that we have identified where she does have a conflict of interest. So opening up for discussions around the cycle trails and district trails as part of a grouping of.
Can I please ask that we adjourn until Councillor Aileen is actually in the room, because the outcomes of our discussions that we may have lead into all the other discussions that we're going to have, and she needs to know what those outcomes are.
How does the rest of the committee feel about us adjourning until Councillor Aileen can join us, bearing in mind that she won't be able to participate in any of the discussions or the decisions around the items where she's conflicted? Councillor Newman.
Can we not just make her aware of the decision, or how we decide on things and the outcome of the decisions? If she can't be involved in the discussion around them, I don't see why she needs to be in the room if we can make her aware of what has been decided.
Fair point, thank you. Councillor.
I agree with Councillor Newman's thoughts. Yes, she needs to know the decision, but has been pointed out, she cannot partake in any of the discussions or the voting, so I cannot see it being a problem at this stage.
Okay.
I think we just need to get on with what we're doing. We'll be written up otherwise. That's a practical consideration.
Just could I just suggest that it might be a good idea just to take a pause, because I need to advise you all that I've spoken to the Auditor General this morning. And I've mentioned the issue around the 17.5 and the process and procedure, and explained to him I need some assurance from him that we are not doing anything that would jeopardise the finality of our LTP. And I'm expecting advice from him and his staff soon. So you can proceed if you wish. But it does, as I said in the email, which you were all copied into, if you're worried about a judicial review through not following process, I just want to be absolutely clear that not advising the public of what we know and not having a discussion about it outside of this hearing committee or even at this committee, I just want to be absolutely clear that that doesn't jeopardise our process and impede our ability to pass an LTP on time or to be bound up in some consequential actions later on.
So I took advice from the independent chair of our Risk and Assurance Committee last week when we understood that the number that we're talking about now differed from the number in the consultation document. And the first part of that change was a decision by this council directly after adopting the consultation document to add another item, Waingawa Process Water Project, into the long-term plan that wasn't included in the consultation document. So this council made that first decision. So I took advice last week, and the advice was the consultation was on the items of the roading and wastewater. And as a consequence, those items weren't affected. And so our consultation should remain valid because our consultation was around roading and wastewater. The change in a rates number from 15.1% to approximately a 17.5% number, which has moved every day since we started this process in early March, is not a significantly enough material change from the base number to warrant a reconsultation, in his view.
Thank you.
I am also really conscious that we locked the long-term plan consultation budget in early March, and that was 2 months ago. And we've learned an awful lot of new information over that time. And that new information has come from both the audit that has occurred with the Office of the Auditor General and also new information as we've worked through our roading contracts. So some of that goes up and some of that goes down, and that is how we learn new things over time. But it has been 2 months since the budget for the consultation document was locked and loaded as part of consultation. And we know more things now than we did 2 months ago.
So that doesn't stop us from beginning some of our discussions around these items. Dale, as Deputy Mayor, do you have anything further to?
No, I think we've got to table the best advice we have at the moment and make the calls based on that.
Other councillors, are you happy to proceed with having discussions around the items that Councillor Aileen does have a conflict on, and that the information that is discussed around will be able to be shared with her as we go down through other items that will be discussed today?
Yeah, I'm more than happy, as I've already stated, that we need to move on. We need to get this sorted and carry on. As I've already said, Councillor Ailing cannot have any input into the cycle trails because of her position. So I think, we need to advise her once we've made that decision. Carry on.
Thank you. Councillor Gallant, you any thoughts?
I guess if she can't have any input on things, was it trials and
the event centre?
events? Yeah,
Are you happy if we carry on with the discussions on?
I guess we can carry on with those. Then she can't have any input anyway. So
Okay.
It was also community services, wasn't it? That's broader than, I don't know, but where does that start and stop? I mean,
It's in her submission, she mentions community services, which we know as a council is all encompassing,
Yeah.
but she specifically refers to the cycle trails and the event centre as specific items.
that's fine.
That's how I have taken that. Right, so the general consensus I feel around the table is that we just crack on with discussions around the cycle trails. I have noted Councillor Cretney's thoughts and opinion, and I think that we will be able to articulate decisions that will come in discussions later in the day that may or may not be impacted by any decisions that we make today around this morning without Councillor Aileen around the cycle trails, etc. So moving on, I will open the table up for some discussions. We have two levels of the cycle trails really. So we have the local trails, which as are stated in our LTP document. So I think maybe we discuss that and just see the appetite around our table for those cycle trails. And Councillor Cretney, you may open.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Jeff, can you please just enlighten me to what's included in the local cycle trails? Because from my remembering back when this was first raised, it was the Carterton to Clearville and Matarawa to Carterton. But since then, I've heard it spoken by yourself from Carterton to Gladstone, which is included in the cycle trails.
Councillor Cretney, the first year of the project is Matarawa to town. So that's the first section of the project is planned for the first year. The second section, which was the second year, was town to Clearville. And I don't.
Can I further?
Yep.
So for year one, we've got a section for the Matarawa Trail, which is River Road into town. We've also got in the scoping, so the design scoping for urban and or Gladstone trails. So that's just scoping to what looks like if we wanted to do trails out to Gladstone, how would that realistically look like for work? So that's one section that's included in there. So for year two, we've got the Clearville section, which is from Kemp Street out to Clearville, and then also included in
And that was year two.
and then we've also got the detailed design if we did want to look at the urban or Gladstone as well for year two.
So design but not built.
Thank you.
Thank you. That answer your question, Councillor Cretney?
Yes, thanks.
Do you have anything further that you'd like to ask?
It just would have been good, I think, to have within this document that it actually included the scoping and design work involved if that was put forward. Whereas it's very limiting on those two specific ones.
Any other questions or discussions from any of our councillors, elected members?
That Matarawa to town trails, like I haven't done my homework. I don't know where it's going exactly, but I know building a cycleway through there, it's just a bog hole in the winter. And it's really soft ground. It'd be hard to build. It's like if you decide to put a road somewhere, it's one of the worst places you want to put a road. You just dig out so deep to be able to get a firm top on it.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, his hand up, thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, without getting into the detail of design and build, from the submissions that came in, it's pretty clear there's very limited or low appetite for the cycle trails. as a concept, a lot of people referred to cycle trails and a lot of people said no. Personally, we've got 2.4 or 3 million with the 600 funding. I personally would like to explore what 500,000 might get in terms, rather than completely kick it out and say we're not going to consider that. I understand the finance, I get all that, but I wonder if there's a halfway house with cycle trails, if we can actually show that we've got an eye to the future, and we're prepared to consider looking at some of the design and the specs and the business case, if you like, for some of these without actually getting rid of the whole thing for the next 3 years. And that, if we could do it, I'd be comfortable with that.
Yeah, so look, I'm mindful of there's a good submission there about Perry's Road, about the health risks around dust and unsealed roads. We've already had advice around the number of accidents and the death on Perry's Road. I think in the light of the strength of the views expressed in the submissions, putting $3 million into cycleways right now, even though I do have I'm still torn between and twixt over the connector between what will be Sunset Road and here. I just think it's folly. This council has been very adamant and very clear. Management have been very clear to me about any decisions around even 1 metre of seal extension. And yet we still sit here and talk about $3 million into cycleways when, and it's not just about these submissions. Go anywhere out there and talk to people. We stand to be strongly criticised if that's included in the LTP. That's my sense.
Thank you. Lou.
Question for staff possibly around that funding. So I think there's a $600,000 better off funding, is it, that we're proposing to use? Yeah. So do we also need to spend additional money, or could we just use that 600?
I'll ask and then Glenda might clarify my comments, but I don't think $600,000 is enough to construct any of the trails. It may get us enough to do design work so that we understood where the trails were going to go and the costs of getting over streams and rivers, but it certainly won't construct a trail.
Could I ask, could that 600 be used for another purpose that's more urgent?
Can we, sorry, if we can let Lou finish, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I just wonder whether that would still be a good opportunity to not use the ratepayer money, use the better off funding to do our homework and have it all in line for when we are in a better position to put that on the ratepayers. I think we did have a lot of people who were saying they don't want rates to increase, and cycleways is an easy cut for them. But we also had a number of people saying that it was important to them and they use the cycleways. You know, I'm a massive cycle and getting out there and walking like fan, but I am not necessarily supportive of the paths proposed, and I don't know if the bigger picture has really been thought of just yet. For example, the Clearville connection, that's awesome, but how are the kids getting to Kent Street? So yeah, I'm a bit on the fence around it. That's just my thoughts, but I do think it's really important, and I do think that part of council, it's bigger than just the roads and the waters.
Thank you, Lou. Ron, do you have something further?
Oh, no, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to know that 600, whilst it's not money that's coming out of the ratepayers' pocket, it's money that can be used to alleviate ratepayers' pockets. So the rules around the use of that bit of good funding.
Sorry, Your Worship. The feedback from the DIA is any reallocation of better off funding now needs to go towards Water's assets. It's unable to go to any other kind of project. It must be reallocated towards Waters. That could be local water done well, could be transition, but it must go towards Waters.
So it could be used with option 2
Option 2, yes, it could. Yeah, it could.
and alleviate the, well,
That's the guidance from the DIA.
I would have voted option 2. I don't know on that.
It's right. Option 2 was,
Yes. That is the
anyway.
benefit, Madam Chair, of a broader conversation.
Yeah, I'm also, I do agree with you,
I would
that
have,
we also need to kind of make sure that we follow some processes so we don't miss anything off in today's discussion, but I hear what you're saying. Other councillors that we haven't heard from yet? Councillor Dalla.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, I agree with the sentiments of other councillors here that there is a low appetite from the submissions that we received and from people I've spoken to in the community for cycle trails. One thing that I found out yesterday that I didn't know really, the bridge across the Waihini to Matarawa is externally funded, so that is not part of the monies that we're considering today. The design scoping from the urban and Gladstone Trail, to me, perhaps we're probably better off to concentrate getting from the Matarawa Bridge to the start of the cycle trail, which is, the way I understand it, is roads, country roads, until we get to the wastewater plant. Is that correct? Yeah, if we're going to do anything, I think that's where the money should be concentrated on. But as I say, it's coming through loud and clear. There is a low appetite for cycle trails. Thank you.
Councillor Gallen?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with this. It used to be called Swap Road for a reason. I think it's now called Matarawa Road. So if you're going to, if you remember a while back, there was submissions from people on that road about the Fulton Hogan was going to quarry up there and how narrow it was. So narrow, where are we going to put the cycleway, you know? I just see so many problems.
And I think that's part of the scoping, isn't it? It's, yeah, Glenda, do you want to come to the table and?
I could. While Glenda's doing that, the purchase of the 44 Matarawa Road does change a lot of the cycle trail options for that section. So it does allow us to use that property. There are, on one side of the road is mostly Greater Wellington, so they will, the proposal would be to cross at River Road from Greytown and then along the stop bank along Greater Wellington's land, and then pop out just before one of the bridge crossings, cross using the road, and then over onto 44 Matarawa Road, which would be council's land. So there would be a small section on previously Swamp Road, Matarawa Road, but mostly it would be off road.
I can see the sense in that now. Yeah, okay, right.
And we're continuing to have conversations with KiwiRail, and just last week we've been appointed a project manager from KiwiRail, who are now happy for us to look at extending from Kent Street through to Lincoln Road. So what would ultimately be the end goal is that there's a small section on Lincoln Road which then connects into the rail corridor, and that rail corridor goes all the way through to Clearville. So with the scoping of the urban / Gladstone, that's where we would probably be focusing our attention at this stage, is scoping how that works to get from Lincoln Road through to Kent Street. So then ultimately our trail joins up from River Road at Matarawa all the way through to Clearville, with probably only 2 small sections of on-road area, which is the crossing at Matarawa, the crossing from Dalefield to Lincoln, and then back on and then all the way through to Cleveland. So that's what's been developing and having conversations in the background. The other thing that we had proposed is to move the design work for Clearville to year 3. The build work and construction for Clearville to year 3 of the LTP, because Kiwi Rail have indicated that the design period will take some time. So that I think for the Matarawa, it's all along the stock bank. It's Greater Wellington and one landowner. That landowner is on board and supportive. Greater Wellington's on board and supportive. So we're at a stage now where we can go ahead and start doing detailed design, with the hopes to build next financial year, and then it would be progress continuing to go through town. But we have opted to move Clearville to year 3 because of the time frame with Kiwi Rail have indicated. So the other thing that we had done, we dropped out, we originally had build in year 3, so we had dropped out that for the urban Gladstone, so we've been 1.6 of ratepayers funding that we're asking for, because we've got the carryover of the 495 and the better off, the 295 and the better off funding that we've already got. So it does still total 2.4, but it's not 3 million anymore, it's 2.1.
Glenda, just on that 295, wasn't it allocated to the 5 towns trails?
The 295 was allocated in this long-term plan for us to do the work.
Carterton trails.
Carterton trail.
For us to look at 5 towns and within Carterton. So that's where the work has already been undertaken at Matarawa site. That's where we've been able to partner with Carterton District Trails Trust for them to do that work on the bridge design. So the current LTP is for us to get ready to get a build ready. And then if and when 5 towns trust come on board, we hand over that bridge project to 5 towns to go and get the external funding and do the build, and that becomes 5 towns and in line with their project.
And thinking about yesterday when Leslie McGibbon and Ian McDonald came in and spoke about the bridge, I'm just trying to think back if they mentioned if they've had any funding or anything approved for the bridge at all at this stage, and did they?
So we're in partnership with them at the moment. They've just undertaken the
Detailed design.
No, it's not detailed design. It's the location, the suitable location work.
Yep.
We're hoping to bring a paper back up to council for project and policies, next project and policies, which goes over that report, which talks about where is the preferred design, because there was 5 options for where the bridge should go. And if that gets approved by project and policies, then with this carryover funding that we've got, or this long-term plan funding, they'll then do the detailed design within that, and then that will be done. So once the detailed design is done, that our responsibility in that at this stage is completed, because detailed design gets handed over to 5 Town Trails Trust.
And is that in conjunction with South Wairarapa District Council? Because if these 5 sites.
We've been communicating with South Wairarapa District Council, and the same report will be presented to South Wairarapa District Council. But at this stage, that project has been funded through our current long-term plan.
At the moment, in this country, cycle trails are a metaphor for council waste. Not saying that's what's going on here, but that's the way it's perceived, and we've got a huge perception problem out there now. So in terms of the specific trails we're talking about, I am supportive of a trail from here out to Matarawa, which links with the bridge. But until there's actual confirmation that there's a bridge, I'm not really. And I had concerns about the lengthy culvert, which appears to be required in terms of the Clareville connector. I don't think we've got any idea whether the 2.4 or $3 million is going to be enough to do what we're talking about. I'd like to see something in the long-term plan which enables us to proceed at some point. And maybe $600,000, $295,000 is a serendipitous number that will enable us to approve design work. But I really struggle with us spending $3 million in the next 3 years. That's kind of where I am.
Hi.
Yeah,
Look,
please.
one of the, when they built the bridge at Tohara they called it the bridge to nowhere because there was no trail on either side.
That's right.
And then they've further then had to go and put trail in to connect it all up. So I think it's at this stage, the trail will be a trail that'll get used regardless of the fact that there's a bridge there or not. But when the bridge is there, then there is that connection point, and then you'll see a wider audience starting to use it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see.
Yeah.
Chair, can I just add my thoughts based on Councillor Lawrence's comment? I would suggest to you that if I'm going to Parliament and talking to people about another $500,000 for the Wainoa water scheme, they're going to point to $3 million on a cycleway and say, you don't need it. In fact, I can tell you that is what's going to happen when I raise the issue formally. So Councillor Lawrence is right. As regards to the Taraneka Bridge, I was the guy that convinced the government, the Shovel Ready project, to give that money. There was a sense there that the bridge was built and the track wasn't there. There was a sense that the very people who wanted that bridge and wanted the cycleways have now backpedaled in their LTPs and their commitments to their own 5 towns trails. There is a fact that Masterton likewise has pulled. None of that's going to give confidence to any cabinet minister looking at a proposal from this group asking for, what, $1 million to build another bridge. It's not going to give confidence. So I have my doubts as to how long it's going to take people to get that money to build that bridge. And I worry about the consequential negative perceptions that will be created by people as they watch us go ahead and spend money on cycleways.
Thank you, Ron. I have a question. So the carryover funding of the 295 and then the 600 better off funding, how sufficient would that be to complete the design work required? And I've heard, obviously read the submissions, we heard from submitters and people I've spoken to in the community. Walking and cycling as an alternative means of transport is quite high on people's priority at the moment. But how much bang for buck can we get from that 895 in regards to the Matarawa to the town centre connection, for example?
I think you will get the detailed design for the bridge completed, which is already underway, and you would get some detailed design of Matarawa
To
Lincoln. Yeah.
No construction.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And any work on the
And then,
Clever
sorry, No. Well, yes, a very small portion. My question is, with the Better Off funding, that is specifically, so with you saying with the reallocation of Better Off funding, this is still the project?
Mhm.
So.
It's reallocated from an existing project to anything else that must go to waters.
Yeah.
Retained within the project.
So you would probably then get design work for Kent to Cleveland as well.
Design and a FEMA budget with no reason.
So,
I have a sense at the moment, I don't really know what it's going to cost.
so that would be effectively scope from Matarawa, from the bridge to the two things to Cleveland. Are there any other questions that we would like to put to staff, or any other discussion around this?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Jeff, just confirm what Mayor Ron asked earlier about the 600,000. That could potentially be reallocated to the Wainoa Water Project. If it's three waters.
I don't believe so. I would need to double check. I believe it will need to go to Three Waters assets. I don't believe it would be the DIA would allow it to go to a process water project because it's not drinking water or wastewater or stormwater.
Be good to know a little bit more whether that was.
I could double check that, but I'm fairly certain it would need, the advice is it must go to the Three Waters. I will double check that in a break.
So that's if we don't use it for the cycle.
It would need to go to, it could potentially go towards, as you suggest, Councillor Cretney, towards, say, the headworks, which would be fine, or inundation, or but I think the process water nature of that project might rule it out.
Yeah, that Wainoa project is where I said is a new project. It's not R&M or improvements on existing assets.
Isn't there some improvements going on with what we need to add additional tanks for existing water races and so forth?
Yeah, but that's existing assets, not
Water races aren't part of the Three Waters.
we're adding to a new asset basically.
Okay. But question, with local water done well coming, are we going to have to front up to some significant expenditure in council in order to participate in?
Local water done well?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. We do have a small amount of transition funding remaining, which we will reallocate towards the local water done well project, and particularly where we use external resources, we will use that transition funding for external costs. Staff time is already budgeted for, but there will be beyond the first off-ramp. So council will recall there was an off-ramp in August for local water done well outside of the Wellington region project. Beyond that first off-ramp, we have not budgeted. So if we continue on in the Wellington project, there will be additional cost as part of remaining in that project. I don't know how much that would be because the scope of that project is moving quite rapidly.
But we could redirect some of this $600,000 of Better Off funding to that transition process.
That is a key driver of the DIA. Yes, they would be very supportive of that happening.
But we have no idea how much is required.
Okay, so bringing it back to the LT, that's okay. It's all good. It's really good conversations because it's good for us to have all of this front of mind and the information, and thank you very much to management for providing that.
Yeah, just
Yes,
clarify Councillor Cretney's comment. So thank you. The DIA have said that any unspent better off funding or reallocated better off funding needs to go towards increasing investment in water infrastructure to help or establish a new water services delivery organisation. So that is 3 waters, and it would exclude processed water.
So one of the conversations we've had during the 3 waters, the lead up to the advisory group's establishment, is that if we decide to opt out of the process at rank 1 or rank 2, one of the challenges, and I had a chat with Karen about this the other morning, is we then have to stand up our own people inside to build, if we choose to put a Carterton water services entity together or be part of a Wairarapa water services entity, we then have to stump up staff, money or people to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
So that money can be used for that.
Correct. The previous, there is no more better off funding, and the no worse off funding has disappeared. So, and the second tranche of better off funding has also disappeared. So that if we decide to do it alone, we're literally on our own, funding wise and resource wise.
okay. Do we feel we have had enough discussion around the cycle trails as discussed in the LTP and as per submissions that we heard verbally on and read?
Do we have like 3 different positions here? One is nothing. One is $3 million as or one is some allocation of funding to scoping and design work.
So I think my understanding is it's now 1.6 million plus the carry forward. So it's now a total of 2.4. Yeah, and that part of that 2.4 is the almost 900,000. So it's the carryover funding plus the 600,000 of better off funding. So the impact to the ratepayers will be 1.6.
Just, yeah, I know where I started as an ideal, but I've heard nothing that supports that and plenty that doesn't. So that would be an ideal from the heart, but I can't sense any real reason why I think it's 2. I think it's all of it and we do the job as proposed, or we don't. I agree with what you said in the beginning. I didn't sense that. Well, from hearing to spend 600, 800 and something $1,000 to just get a set of drawings and a bit of scope, but nothing physical for people to ride on. I'm struggling to spend the best part of $1 million for, unless we were confident that within the next, say, 6 years, we would actually take that investment and create something that I could ride my bicycle on or walk on. Are we confident? No, I wouldn't have thought so. I think it depends on the bridge, but yeah. And are we confident it is going to be a bridge? I don't know where that money is coming from. I don't know. Well, I guess that's why I flew the balloon, to see what momentum that might get or what support that might get, and I'm not feeling it.
As a government, we threw money around with the shovel ready, $3 billion. We gave out a lot of money, $3 billion on provincial growth projects. everybody was screaming for them. The money's been chucked out. These are different times. There's only 1 billion in provincial funding, and there's no shovel ready. And there's all the talk about austerity and trimming back and pulling back. And I do know that there are post project reviews going on to assess of all the money they did give out, what came to fruition, and did it achieve the results that the business case said it would. I wouldn't put 10 cents on the bet myself.
So in regards to our LTP, and that's great information. Thank you, Ron. But in regards to our LTP and the Carterton trails, is anybody around the table prepared to move that we continue with the recommendation that was in our consultation recommendation, but the notification in our consultation document? Or does somebody have another decision that they would like to put forward, or decisions to put forward for a vote? I'm just conscious of time.
I suggest, why don't you put the budget as proposed in the consultation document to the vote? If that fails, somebody could come up with an alternative solution. Otherwise, if it fails, then I think the answer would be there's no budget. If we can't agree on an alternative motion, would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah.
I think the chair just did call for nominate, call for someone to move.
Yeah, sorry, I probably didn't articulate it very well.
For someone to move it.
Thank you. Yes, for articulating a little better than I did.
You were fine. You were fine.
So do we have any members around the table prepared to move that we continue with the 2.4 as per our LTP? Do we have anybody to propose? Let's go with a lesser amount to be put forward for developing part thereof of the cycle trails with the district.
I'd like to move that we put in the long-term plan sufficient funding to properly scope and design cycle trail from River Road at Matarawa to Clearville. And I don't know exactly what that number needs to be.
Okay, we can do that at this stage and then come back and with the numbers later. Lou, are you seconding that?
No. Yeah, I'd like to second it.
Second that. Okay, so Robin, have you got that?
We're having discussion around that.
We can have absolutely a discussion around that.
Thank you. Just looking back at our previous long-term plan, the $295,000 that was set aside for Trail 1, linking Grey down to Carterton, is actually under the 5 Towns Trails. But I would suggest that what Steve's asking is actually already there. The $295,000 is already there for the detailed planning, route and identification, costing, timing and consultation with landowners and the community is within that $295,000.
I think, Steve, what you're proposing is the other better off funding as well.
I don't know what the number is, but sufficient to
scope.
Yeah, and let's say one of a number up to, that would be $895,000.
Councillor Lawrence is also extended from Carterton to Clearville.
Yeah.
Yes. So from River Road to Clearville to scope the full design work.
So do we have the ability now to move another motion, or do we have to?
So we need to work.
First motion.
You can amend it.
Happy for minutes.
So we've had a.
Make it up.
That's what we do. My amendment, if we were going to amend, but my amendment would be that $600,000 better off funding goes towards our wastewater treatment plant upgrade, which is of more importance to me, considering we already have funding to do the work that Councillor Lawrence has talked about for Trail 1.
We have to put it to the vote.
It's not an amendment, Kate, is it? That's another motion.
It's not an amendment.
Well, it has to be an amendment because if we pass the first.
So we've had
We've already spent our 600K then.
So we do have a proposal on the table.
Perhaps, may I reword for councillor Cretney? I think his amendment is seeking to limit it to just the 295,000, not the better off funding. Sorry, I don't mean to tell you what you're proposing, but is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
As
So how do you do it? You vote on the amendment
Well, yes.
and then you vote on the substantive motion. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a
It's already, so it's moving the
so,
The motion, we need a second.
okay, so we need a seconder for the amendment is Steve Gallen. Okay, we take the vote with the amendment.
on the
So we take a vote on the amendment of limiting it to 295,000. So if we can have a show of hands on that in favour. We have 4 in favour and those against. We have 4 against. As I had said, I'm not going to use a casting vote. So status quo goes, which I guess means we go back to the first proposal.
Correct.
Yes. So now
Gracie would have moved.
on the first proposal, she wouldn't be able to because she.
Which is a question on the first proposal, on the motion song. So that amount of money that's allocated on that motion is how much? And is it coming
190 up to maximum of 895?
maximum 895? And the proposition is that comes out of the better.
So 295 is carry forward and 600,000 is the better off funding, which had been
No impact on rate,
no impact on the rates at all.
Impact on rates, but it's
but no
it's
reallocation.
not been spent on water.
So are we clear?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, through you, just a point of clarification, the better off funding is 520,000, just to clarify.
520.
Up to a maximum of 815,000.
Happy with the mix?
the only slight complication here is that if this motion fails.
Put up another one.
Then we've done another motion.
Put up another one.
Put to the table.
Okay.
Put up another one.
Okay, so we now have the original proposal, which was moved by councillor Lawrence and seconded by councillor Newman, that 815,000 is allocated to the local cycle trails for full scope and design from River Road, Matarawa, up to Clearville. I don't think there's anything else. Up to and with the note that there is no impact on the ratepayers. To the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and against. 3 against. So that motion is carried. Well done, team. One decision down, 50,000 to go.
It's 3.
Thank you. Councillor Ayling is going to be joining us at 11:30, I believe, too. So keeping in the theme of the cycle trails, the next item on the agenda is the 5 Towns Trails Network, of which actually that could possibly be covered in the MOUs, maybe, because they're requesting money for 3 years, or we keep it under cycles.
It's your call. They are requesting money, but it was
Yeah.
cycles.
So appetite around the table. The Five Towns Trails Network are requesting a 3-year amount of 20,000 per annum. We do have other submitters who are also requesting multi-year contributions via MOUs. Would the committee like to discuss this separately? Or would we like to have it when we do our full discussion around all the other MOUs a little bit later today?
We have the issue that Councillor Ayling, I think, is probably at this one.
Yeah. So
Perhaps could I
yes,
clarify the resolution to re-include Councillor Ayling in this committee meeting was specifically excluded her from the Carterton District Trails Project, which is what she submitted on. I don't think she submitted on the Five Towns Trails.
No, her wording didn't say Five Towns Trails.
So the other issue, as Councillor Ayling is concerned, was the event centre, was it?
That's correct. Yeah. So is everybody comfortable if we do the Five Towns Trails Trust Network and under the MOU? Okay. Awesome. Let me just make the notes. I don't forget to include that later. Okay, so
Morning.
Morning.
thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Yes. Well, I think now that Councillor Ayling is here, carry on with our agenda. So what we're doing this morning is we identified through the hearings yesterday kind of groupings of themes throughout the LTP, and our first items were actually our consultation items. Where we landed this morning were transportation option 2 and waters option 2 as well.
Sorry, just to be clear, I'm not quite sure what's changed between now and yesterday. I'd love to hear if there's been a statement that's been made. I'd love to know what has been said in my absence.
Discussion was held around the table and advice was taken through LGNZ that under the deliberations that you were able to participate around the table apart from items that were considered conflicts of interest in your submission, and those particular items related to the local trails network for Carterton.
Yep.
And also the event centre specifically. So when
I was wrongly excluded yesterday.
No, the advice that we were given and the information from the Office of Auditor General, His Worship actually said it was correct earlier, the comments that were made and ruled by the chair. So yesterday's decision was yesterday's decision. Decision has been made today to include you, and now we're moving on through the deliberations of the long-term plan.
And what is it that I'm allowed to speak on?
So you are allowed to participate in any discussions and decisions around anything in the long-term plan with the exclusion of the event centre.
Right.
And the Carterton District Trails, because they specifically outline those in your submission.
Right. Yeah, I look forward to being part of the conversation because there's a lot to be had, a lot to be discussed.
Yes, absolutely. And as a team, that's what we are here to do today.
Yeah.
So moving on, the next item is Destination Wairarapa. There were several submissions received orally yesterday and also our written submissions as well. So I would like to open to the table for any discussion around Destination Wairarapa, the relationship that we have with it, bearing in mind that we need to discuss what we know now. I know there is a lot of talk around the district about whether South Wairarapa and Masterton may or may not be supporting them. But as a Carterton District Council committee that we actually need, and for our long-term plan, we do need to just discuss the information that we specifically know now in relation to our council. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to raise some of the points that I thought were put on the table yesterday. That there is a feeling that businesses, unless they're a member of Destination Wairarapa, do not receive the same benefit as those members who paid into Destination Wairarapa. They feel they don't get the same promotion as members do. So my concern is we're providing funding to Destination Wairarapa where they're only looking after their members as such. So that concerns me that we're 55,000, whatever it is. How could that be better spent just focused on our own community? And a number of those businesses out there in the whole of the Wairarapa and in Carterton already promote their businesses very, very well. And I feel that Destination Wairarapa jump on that bandwagon. But so many businesses in Carterton miss out on that promotion. So it concerns me that we're providing $55,000, whatever the actual figure is, to Destination Wairarapa, and our local businesses are not receiving the benefit. Or the full businesses are not receiving the benefit.
Thank you. Lou, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. Just like to echo firstly what Steve correctly said. I've heard that from a lot of businesses that feel exactly the same way, that unless you're a member and you're one of their chosen members, that you don't really get much in return. But I also would just like to query, we've now got a targeted economic development rate, is that correct? So should this be coming under that discussion as well? Like, it'd be nice to know what that pool of money is.
So the targeted economic development rate covers a range of things. So Destination Wairarapa is approximately $56,000 per annum. The plan had no forecast increase for that. There's approximately $60,000 funding for the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy. And then there is a number of other smaller grants that fall within that. So $15,000 towards Business Wairarapa off the top of my head. And I think we dropped below that down into smaller aspects, Go Carterton and that kind of thing. But those were the large items in there. 56,000 to Destination Wairarapa, 60,000 to the WED strategy, and $15,000 to Business Wairarapa.
Cool. So just as a guesstimate then, about 30% of that targeted economic development rate is going to be going, as proposed, to Destination Wairarapa.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, just following on, I think Anna Nielsen was pretty clear that they are a membership organisation, so their primary responses to their customers. She also did say, of course, there's other businesses get the flow-on effect from, events and things like that. I guess they've clearly done their homework, because the overwhelming submissions, like Rosie and a lot of written submissions, were very, very strongly in support of a continuation of the existing relationship with DW. So I guess if I apply the same lens as I have with other things, and based on the submissions coming forward through the hearings yesterday, it was very clear.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Discussions? It'd be really good to hear from everyone around the table on their discussions and thoughts. So I've got
No, Brian,
Ella,
well, I think.
and then
Oh, yeah, I'm still thinking too, but I'll start thinking out loud. Like Dale has already pointed out, they are a membership organisation, and you won't get any direct benefits from them unless you're a member, basically, is what they're saying. You do get indirect membership benefits, indirect benefits by being a business in the Wairarapa, and also with CDC contributing probably in a little bit of an indirect way, in the sense that the money that we put in obviously goes to support them, but we don't actually know how. So apart from the overall support. So with that in mind, I don't know how, I can't see a way that they can support businesses that aren't paying a membership to the same extent as the businesses that aren't. Yet being part of a resident business in any town, they're getting indirect benefit through that. So it is a difficult one. It is a difficult one, but I support them, and obviously the people that are members of DW are getting really good bang for their buck. Most of them are. That's what I need to say.
Thank you. We've got more opportunity to have more discussion around things too. It's not just limited to a one-stop shop. Councillor Aileen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Destination Wairarapa. So I'm at a slight disadvantage having been excluded yesterday and not hearing your oral submissions on this. However, from the written submissions, which I read thoroughly, I was really interested to see how many businesses see value in it, because every time the woman from Destination Wairarapa has sat at this table, I've questioned what value Carterton gets out of it. It seems to be always South Wairarapa based. I think a lot of her reporting is pointing at the stuff that's already happening organically. So $500,000 is a significant budget they have to work on, and I'm not sure that they do as much as they could with that money. However, the businesses who are involved clearly see some benefit. So I'm more than open-minded enough to take that into consideration.
Thank
you. I'm mindful of the fact that at the end of the submissions we got yesterday, there were 12 from the Girl Guides. I'm just, only point I'm trying to make is that it is possible with a little bit of effort to organise a lot of submissions. And I think we should obviously have to be mindful of people who've submitted, but we also have to some extent look at the numbers and look at the at what they say. And if they're all saying exactly the same thing, there seems to be a degree of
script.
Every time DW come and present to us, there's a graph for Masterton, there's a graph for South Wairarapa, and along the bottom there's a little wiggly line which is Carterton. In terms of spend, we're miles behind. I don't think it's entirely Destination Wairarapa's fault, because we don't.
As much to point to.
Yeah.
So we just let the council
as a district, I don't think we're putting enough in front of them. But I am a bit unconvinced as to the value that Carterton is actually getting from Destination Wairarapa. Kind of worse.
Councillor Gallen.
I too thought a while ago how much we spend, as I say, like Steve just said, Masterton, South Wairarapa, and the big scales, I think, with the four cousins. But something I'm sort of reflecting back on, something these guys in-house, we have our own skills and technology. I'm just trying to think what it was. They submitted a certain amount and got a huge return. And this is from our own team here. I'm sometimes thinking, we do more for that market ourselves, shan't we? So, cousins, the others get the sales and we get the Greg in between.
Lou, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, me again. I'd just like to note in submission 142 from Kay and Richard, they've mentioned, so they're members of Destination Wairarapa, and they've said the idea behind the organisation is excellent, the implementation is not. So it's definitely not necessarily a member versus non-member thing. I think it's also a member versus member thing. And I just wondered if I could ask staff or whoever can answer the question, how does council find their support in terms of when we have events or things at the event centre? Do we get much support from them?
I'll start off and clarify with Glenda. So events that occur at the event centre are supported by our own staff. We look to Destination Wairarapa to support events that are not run by council. So the balloon festival, like Daffodil Day. So events that are not run by council, we look to Destination Wairarapa, and it'd be fair to say we have a mixed bag of responses from our engagements with Destination Wairarapa over those Carterton based events.
Additionally, the event centre is a member of Go Carterton. And has to go through the same process as every other organisation business member. They do, and they have improved in the last couple of years, the promotion of events that are happening within the event centre. But it has been a long slog to get that promotion lifted.
Okay, and then what they are, just one more question, what they are doing for the event centre then should also, if the event centre was a member still of Destination Wairarapa, that should still occur.
Yeah, but I think it's hard for me to advocate not supporting an entity that we agreed to go into working on the basis that it's for the greater good of the whole of the Wairarapa, particularly being a amalgamationist. It would be counter to all of my arguments to not support those arrangements. I think if there's an issue that keeps emerging is that sense that we're not getting value for money. But I guess the next question I have is, what is our expectation? Is there an issue with the MOU? There an issue with the KPIs? Is there an issue in that we have never defined precisely what it is we want from DW? Well, it's easy to poke a stick and say we're not getting this and not getting that, but if that's what you asked for and that's what your contract is, that's all you get. That's down to this table. It's down to management to advise us as where the weaknesses are in the MOU, where we can get improvements to satisfy staff's concerns and councillors' concerns, and we make those changes, and we can make those changes tomorrow. This could be predicated on a renegotiation of that MOU or terms that we wish to apply. So I do note that I know that the returns to Carterton in the tourism sector are always going to be lower than South Wye and Masterton. But if I look at it, the greater good for the region as a whole, people who live in Carterton work in Martinborough in many of those places. They work in Masterton and many of their motels, the hotels and the pubs. Where the spin-off, it's indirect. It may not be easily apparent until someone loses their job. I don't believe there's any way that Australia Today would have been in Martinborough yesterday broadcasting live to all of Australia about the wonderments of the Wairarapa if it wasn't for DW. And I don't believe we would be featuring in a core magazine nationwide for every passenger without DW. We talk about doing stuff ourselves. Well, start talking about extra staff and extra overheads and administration costs, and I want to talk about that later on. So I'll be supporting this, and but I do understand what people have said, and I do ask myself, have we got the contract right?
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I agree. What I took out of yesterday was, you know, we haven't put a heck of a lot as Carterton into the dark skies. It's kind of almost fallen in our lap, but that's a game breaker now. We saw the submission from Sam and Harry about Space Week later this year with Go Carterton and Business Wairarapa and all of the others. I just sense we're on a bit of a cusp of something quite extraordinary, and all those submitters said, and DW unashamedly say they're a marketing organisation, but they need product to market. I sense now we're on the cusp of product to market, and you know, I'd be reluctant to pull the rug out under their feet now when we've booked a Space Week, we've got all the players and the actors ready to go, and it needs to be marketed. If it's going to deliver what we all hope is going to be the first step, and they talked about Space Week twice a year, and I mean, who knows? I'm massively encouraged to support them. I agree with Ron. I think we're always reviewing the MOU, the contract, so we ensure we get bang for buck. But I think now's not the time to pull out of it. It's the time to put more pressure on them to perform when we've got these products now to market.
Thank you, Dale. So I haven't contributed yet. I thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor. I completely agree with what you both have just said. I think what I took from yesterday and from the written submissions that we received was that it isn't just what you can see. And we all know, for those of us who have run businesses and who are involved in other organisations, it's all very well seeing the big, shiny, new toy, whatever that may be, promotion-wise, but it's the knock-on effect, it's the flow-on effect, it is the supermarkets, it is our camping grounds, it is our petrol station, it is grabbing a coffee on the way through, it is employing people who come from our district. I think personally that to withdraw funding from Destination Wairarapa would be, in my words, I would feel it would be short-sighted. I think it is the Wairarapa region as a whole, which we all sitting around this table have advocated very clearly that we want to consider our rohi first, but our greater rohi. And I think Destination Wairarapa, yes, they are an RTO, 100%. But the benefits that are coming from them, and you mentioned the Kuru magazine, it's not just national, Ron, it's international that is going out from. They have brought a lot of people from a tourism point of view to the district. I know in the past when I have run events here and big events here in the Wairarapa, some of the communication in those years with the then staff of DW, it was, you know, I was just having to be that annoying poke to get stuff. I think with the board that they have and the general manager that they have now, that is changing. But you're exactly right. As a council, what do we expect for Destination Wairarapa to deliver for Carterton, and especially with being part of the dark skies, hugely important. And we need to be very clear. I think, you know, 60,000 per annum, that will get us a very small monkey to add to the growing staff. And there is no way $60,000 per annum is actually going to get Carterton District the benefits and the reach that we are able to get into, and the unseen benefits. It's those non-direct benefits. I mean, Michael Hewson, who spoke about something completely different yesterday, he also mentioned it as well. It's not just our street fronts, it's not just our service industries, it's that ripple effect, and it's that deeper effect that is, you know, what is under the surface that's not seen. So I too am very much in favour of our continued support of Destination Wairarapa. So that's my view. Councillor Cretney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, can you just confirm for me what Will the payment we give to them increase because of the new funding we have available? Or will it remain the same?
Budgeted for the same amount, so the same amount as we've currently got in this year's.
Will it remain the same for the next?
So the MOU expires on the 30th of June this year, and we aligned that deliberately with the LTP so that the new MOU could come back to council as part of the LTP. And so once the budget's approved, we can bring back the MOU and we can clarify the KPIs as part of this whole process so that it's aligned.
Were they asking for CPI adjustment? Yeah.
So I think we've got CPI. That could be, yes, I think we have CPI adjustment.
And just to make a point, you mentioned the Kiora magazine, it's paid advertising. Anyone can approach Kiora magazine and ask to advertise in it. So that's not Destination Wairarapa or suddenly providing them with the opportunity to put something into Kiora magazine. It's actually paid advertising.
Not all of their articles.
Including the editorials.
Yeah, not all of their articles are, and I know that from experience with the Balloon Festival. We were actually featured and it wasn't paid advertising, it was a genuine article. So there is some contribution on advertising, but the actual articles, not so much so.
Somebody's got to put it together.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Are we, is there any more discussion around Destination Wairarapa? Or can we go for a decision and a vote to continue to support Destination Wairarapa?
Lou's got a hand up.
Sorry, Lou, yeah, go.
Thank you. Just a question, if we did go back and do another MOU, how long would that be for?
Kia ora, Councillor Newman. I think we would do a 1-year extension, which would align us with Masterton and South Wairarapa's MOUs, and then we could, together as a group, figure out what the plan is beyond the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Aileen?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Is Masterton still going to be funding Destination Wairarapa? Do we have an indication if they're going to be pulling funds?
So we have had hearsay. What we are doing today is we can only make decisions on the information concrete information that we have in front of us.
Their deliberations a week after.
Yeah.
That, so
Right.
Which is why the CE has recommended a contract or an MOU for a year to then align with the other councils.
So there wouldn't be any request from Destination Wairarapa for us to make up the difference if Masterton pull out. We've committed to the 60,000 and that's all we're doing.
Masterton's confirmed that this next year's allocation will remain the same. They've had that. We had that directly in our mayor's deputy mayor's meeting. So they are staying with on year one of the LTP, what they've committed to.
Yep.
Anything that they decide in their LTP deliberations will kick in after that.
Yeah.
And the CE's recommendation that we go 1 year funding will line all those ducks up.
As long as we're not left paying for their staff if everyone else pulls out.
No, it'll be very clear agreement that we have with them.
Great, thank you.
Happy to move that, Chair. If we continue with the existing contract with Destination Wairarapa.
Fantastic. I'm happy to second that one. All those in favour with a show of hand, please. And anyone against? Lou, I couldn't see. Did you have your?
I'll abstain, please.
Okay, so that was all in favour with an abstention from Councillor Newman. Okay, the next big item, which whilst they're not actually asking for funding, was a lot of the submissions were around the really good just to have a discussion around the council table, around the hearings committee table or around the indoor pool. So yes.
So just so I understand, so the people who mentioned yesterday they have conflicts with the indoor pool, how does that work now?
A very good question. I was wondering.
So the conflicts, I think, nobody around this table is part of the committee, are they? On the working group on the indoor pool, and
But there's fundraising support, is that correct? I understand. I remember Lou and Steve Lawrence have both mentioned that they've been helping the pool out with fundraising efforts, and the mayor also said that he's in support.
Lions and both.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both
So that-
Councillor Cretney and Councillor Dell said that Lions through the connection.
Right.
Does that work?
That's not.
Letter of support.
That's-
But that is it.
It's,
It's a, yeah.
If I
Yeah.
may, Chair, none of the members have a financial interest in the pool. There is community interest in the pool, and there are members of the club.
Yeah.
And I think if they are disclosed and known at the table at the time now that we're having the discussion, that is sufficient. I don't see that as excusing any of the members from voting on a decision around the long-term plan with regards to the indoor pool.
Yeah, cool. Just to clarify, because I also don't have any pecuniary interests around the event centre or the cycleways,
no,
but I have been excluded from talking about those areas.
due to your public statement and the potential perception.
Okay, that's fine. That's your
So
stance.
you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that I do have a key for the pool and I did partake in the big swim to help them fundraise. So I just wanted to put that out in the open very clearly.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Councillor Cretney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From my perspective, I feel council can provide support in many ways without being financial. And I think that comes with our agreement for the lease of the land. And I gather that's just a peppercorn lease as such. So if they can have some kind of partnership with council and get to use the event centre as such for an event to raise funds, that's how I see we can support them. From my point of view, I do not see this as being a full community club as such, or an asset that's available to the full community. I see it as quite a closed thing. So from my perspective, I don't see it as something that council should be funding, and especially not in the cost of living crisis that we're in at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there's submission or a number of submissions asked that the pool project be included in the LTP. Well, there's actually no provision for a project to be included in an LTP. That's not the purpose of LTP. It's to determine your financial provisions going forward. I agree with Councillor Cretney. I think there's a lot of opportunities as the relationship continues to develop, because they're in the process of finding a governance group and a charitable trust. So they're evolving too in developing the project, and council's given a letter of support. So we are supportive of the concept, and I think that relationship can continue to develop over the period of the lease that they have for the land. But for it to be included in the LTP, there was nothing that came forward that actually opens the door for that to happen. It's like a lot of facilities in and around Carterton that aren't part of the LTP, but council works with on a regular basis and supports and enables. So I think, Councillor Cretney, I think there's an opportunity to be a supportive partner, if you like, but I don't see how it would slot into an LTP. Do you, Mr. CE?
Deputy Mayor, I think you're absolutely correct. Inclusion in an LTP would often be financial for a project. We can include supportive words in an LTP document, but I can't see how that would extend, really in substance, unless there was some kind of financial contribution planned at some stage. It might not have to be immediate. It could be, beyond year 3, maybe year 5, when we expect the pool to go on. But without a financial commitment, it's very hard to point to something in our plan and say we are supportive.
And if that was the case, then that would be picked up by the auditors, wouldn't it, and raise questions about, because there isn't anything substantive behind it.
You could make a commitment without, you could make a commitment in year 5 for a grant of $100,000 and that would be sufficient. But I think your commitment would need to be financial in order to be recorded for the club.
Thank you. Councillor Aileen, did you have a question?
More of a statement. I just thought the one line that stood out to me in the submission was they said Carterton Swim Club is the last swim club to own its own pool, and I feel like that says it all. There's a reason that that's not the case across the country. It's clearly not something that they can manage to continue the upgrades of, to pay the costs of. Every other swim club in New Zealand's come to that decision. It's a shame if it ends at this point, but it's not for council to keep propping it up if they can't manage it themselves. Other swim clubs have clubs that survive in other facilities. I think this would as well.
And I think that's why they're looking at setting up a charitable trust, isn't it? So that the actual fund keeping it separate. And they were very clear that they weren't asking, and all of the submissions that we have received, that they were clear that they weren't asking us for financial contributions. Any comments around, or any more discussion around the indoor pool? It'd be really good to.
Yeah, just it's interesting because I really do take on board the different comments that are there. It is a fact that Carterton Swimming Club owns the pool. And if we are clear that we don't support projects, I get that. But I look for consistency and sustainability of decisions that are made when you are questioned 2 months down the line. I can't help but reflect on the fact that Carterton Swimming Club is one of the people who helped fundraise for this place. And I can't help but reflect on the fact that this council approved around $100,000 worth of funding to the hockey club for a project to resurface and lay down their artificial turf. So there is a degree of inconsistency already when I look at Carterton Council's decisions over a timeline. I'd like to think going forward from here, we are going to set a new benchmark of consistency, and we'll stick to that. It's not to say that I disagree with what I've heard. I get it. So I'd like to think that as we deliberate further forward, we apply the same principle that we apply here to any other requests for projects that people have in mind as well, that we don't own. That's what I'll say.
Thank you.
I think the point that was made by the swimming club yesterday, that they only have 20 members, and that is like 1% of the people using the pool, is a recognition that although they own it, they're kind of peripheral to it, really. It's got a much, much broader. So their moves to effectively transfer the ownership to a charitable trust, I think, would make our life easier. Can I just ask a question? I don't know if these things are similar at all, but Sparks Park, that still belongs to the Sparks Park Trust, doesn't it? It's not council. But we mow the lawns.
The Sparks Park Charitable Trust is mostly in remission, and whilst legally the park is owned by the charitable trust, we effectively maintain everything. And
I'm getting a few head shakes.
we own it. We own it. Well, there we go. We own it. Right. Come back to us.
Just cleared this morning.
Okay. I'm glad my team clarified my comment.
What's the liability attached?
Okay. So
When did that transfer?
Me. So
okay.
over 4 years ago.
It was, I believe it was gifted to Carterton District Council, but managed by the trust. We do have copies of the trust deed from years ago.
So if someone tried to gift us a swimming pool, would we see?
I've already got one. It's an outdoor one. They need to have.
Councillor Aileen highlighted the fact that, a lot of the pools, and I noticed, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, no, yes,
I
please.
noticed Nuka-Ora were considering potentially doing an aquatic strategy. You may pick that up as part of the hearings, and that is quite important for the Wairarapa region, is to having a widespread review of aquatic facilities in the Wairarapa, because they are they're very expensive to run.
That should have happened before the pool project.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Well, that's single council.
Okay.
East.
Yeah, I mean, we're not actually,
Being asked for anything or to do anything.
I'm supportive of the project, but as a councillor, I don't see what's going to do with that. Apart from the fact that we're the landlord.
And it's more having these discussions around the table, because there were so many submissions to our LTP in support of the indoor pool, whilst they're not actually asking for anything. It's really, really good for us as elected members to have conversations around something that is obviously very, very important to a lot of people in our community. And as you pointed out, yes, it's owned by the swimming club, which is 20 members, but that's less than 1% of the total users. So it's good for us to listen to what they have to say. Councillor Cretney.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This kind of extending what Steve Lawrence has mentioned, I have a concern if council decides to write something in an LTP that we support something, because I feel in a year or two's time, the community will look at that and be going, where's your support? But I feel we've already shown our hand with providing them a lease. And I feel we've given our support by providing that lease at a whatever rate it is. I'm sure it's not a large amount of money, if any. So I would not like, from me personally, I would not like to see us put anything in their long-term plan which looks like a commitment on council's behalf going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Dalla, did you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think that from what I can gather from all the submissions, and it's already been said, they want our support, but they're not asking for money. They're asking for a support commitment, non-financial, and whether we can write something in the LTP like that, which probably gives them a bit more meat to apply for grants or external funding. Somehow, if we can, I don't know whether we can, and word it that it is a non-financial support commitment.
I was just going
Can
to
we?
ask you, but you okay?
Perhaps council may be interested in including support for community-led projects, and we could identify this as a community-led project, and that might be a way to write it into the document that council will, council staff will support community-led projects on this basis. But it looks like then it's not council leading and there's no financial commitment, if that would work.
You're including like Carrington Park, that sort of thing. I guess if we're including it, there'd have to be a budget attached to it, because it's going to be somebody's time and effort and energy. Or not.
So if I know the well-beings may change, but within the LTP document, we speak about the well-beings, and this could just be part of the conversation and the discussion or the document around well-beings. So, and we could specifically identify this project as part of that document.
How do the costings that might be incurred from allowing them to use the event centre be into that mix? Is there a cost that would accumulate of?
So I think I previously talked about how we're working on the in-kind support grant.
Yeah.
So we could go through that process with them, which would record how much the event centre costs, how much staff time was involved, et cetera, which will paint a picture of how much contribution we gave in kind. I don't know if that answers your question, but it'll start to paint a financial picture.
It does, but do you see that there's a need to have that written in the LTP as such? It's just something that could occur outside council with any community group that comes to us.
Well, in Jeff's
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
about having community, supporting community-led
Projects.
projects.
Which
as-
is part of the community development team.
Yes.
Yeah.
So through you, Madam Chair, but so if the wording was when the council notes the high level of support, community support for the community-led, whatever the words are, project, was pleased to receive the submissions, would remind the swim club indoor pool project people of the process by which any community group can get, what do you call it? In-kind
support.
in-kind support. Well, like Carrington Park, we agreed outside of the LTP process that we supported it in principle, providing there was no ratepayer funding. So this is kind of the same.
Yeah.
Not quite. We did commit ratepayer funding to stage 3 if they got through stage 1 and 2. So we have said we will.
There is a long-term commitment. We don't do that.
I'd be happy to take an action to draft a paragraph for inclusion in the LTP and to circulate that to council before it's included.
And can we just note that the in-kind support also relates to any resource consenting or building consenting requirements, which we've already said to them we wouldn't charge for.
So
Talked about connections and services and things like that, practical things that will help their development and not be an upfront cost to us. Yeah.
So we can note, everyone happy with that action? We'll note that as an action. There's nothing specifically, obviously, to decide and vote on because it's not affecting our LTP. So that's great. Thank you. And I think it's heartwarming to see so many people in the community getting behind these community-led projects.
Including people around the table.
Absolutely, yeah, in visible and non-visible ways.
As to whether you want to break for lunch. Is lunch available, Rob?
No, not today.
Not today. Okay.
Our own. This is not Tapuni Corbury.
Great turn to go so far.
Half hour break.
You're here, half hour.
Would everybody happy to have I know my stomach's starting rumbling, so it's probably why Jeff has mentioned that.
Can I get an estimate of how much longer we are committed here?
So we should be finished by Friday. You said till 4, is it in the diary?
Till 4 o'clock, I think Johannes did show.
Johannes showed 5 fingers, well, 4 fingers and a thumb.
It's the South African time. What do you know? I thought 5, did we not?
I had it in my diary till I think 5.
It's up until 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the calendar and the diary until 5 o'clock.
Deliberations.
We had allowed the morning initially for submissions.
Yeah, and in our calendars, it does say 9 till 5.
That's got that never changed.
Sorry.
So if we break now for some Kai and reconvene at 1:45.
Thank you.